Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Update, your home for all your local news and politics. We're going to get you up to date, and we'll have updates from the White House and Capitol Hill, along with the latest from polls, keeping your facts straight, and a look ahead for the rest of the week. I am Johnny Valtman, and you're going to notice we are another scattered cast here for the update because I had to run off and cover a protest. So this is why Jordan's not here. I know we lied to you last week. We try our best not to do that, but of course it's always busy, spontaneous news, so much going on, and so I'm going to cut to the chase as I'll send it over to Joan Tovar, who has more of what's going on in Iowa City.
Thanks, Johnny, and if you loyal viewers at home have been following the area politics the last few weeks, then you'll know that Iowa City is currently running a special election for its District C City Council seat vacated by Andrew Dunn. Last week, the Johnson County League of Women Voters hosted a forum between the two candidates competing for the seat. Those two candidates are Ross Nusser and Oliver Weiline. Initially, there was a third candidate in Sharon DeGraw, but she has since dropped out and will still appear on the ballot, however. Nusser, Weiline, and DeGraw will all appear on the ballot, with the top two finishers advancing to the election exactly a month from tomorrow on March 4th. And as of filming this, a protest broke out on the Pentecost for immigration rights in Iowa City.
In light of recent actions by the White House, demonstrators came together Monday night in Iowa City to join other immigration protests nationwide.
At the end of the day, we're all human, and we all deserve our rights and our freedom of speech.
And as you can hear behind me, the protesters have made their way all around Iowa City with chants, dances, and more to show their disapproval of Donald Trump and his administration.
To help protect everyone else and help show everyone else that we can be stronger than Trump, stronger than anybody.
The protest around the city led to a lot of support and some flare-ups with counter-protesters. But many in the crowd stood proud of their heritage.
I feel like all of our parents are really hard workers. I feel like everyone's parents here are really hard workers. They came here to actually make an impact, and I feel like they don't understand that.
Protesters centered around community, about their heritage, and a fight to overcome current obstacles for immigrants in the United States.
We really care about our community. We're all really conjoined, and we know that we want to protect each other. We want a better future for ourselves and our people.
As chants and music echoed into the night, the protesters joined immigrants and demonstrators across the country in solidarity. From the University of Iowa, Johnny Valtman, DITV.
Thanks. Now let's go ahead and check in on what's been going on in the Iowa legislature. Now, an Iowa state representative unexpectedly passed away on Friday at the age of 72. Graber was a Republican representative from House District 100. He had been elected to the Iowa House in 2020 and was serving his third term in office. Graber served 32 years in the National Guard before retiring as a brigadier general. And then an Iowa Senate seat was flipped last week. A special election was held to replace Chris Knoyer, who resigned from her Senate seat to become the new lieutenant governor. Democrat Mike Zimmer defeated Republican Kate Whittington with 52% of the vote for Senate District 35. Zimmerman's win moves the Republican majority in the chamber to 34-16. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the major bills that have been trying to push their way through legislature. Senate File 8 advanced from subcommittee on Thursday. This bill looks to outlaw punishment against school employees and students who use an individual's legal name rather than their preferred one. Some supporters of the bill think this is a protection of free speech, while opponents worry that this could increase bullying in schools. Another bill to look out for is going to be House Study Bill 53, which looks to prohibit universities from requiring students to enroll in diversity, equity, and inclusion or critical race theory classes. While these classes would still be available if passed, it would remove it as a requirement if the class does not relate to a student's major. Iowa lawmakers are calling this the Freedom from Indoctrination Act. Now, clearly things have been busy around Iowa politics, but let's go ahead and check back in with the studio.
Thanks, Kayla. A lot going on there. And of course, we're going to expand it way wide open here, not only to the rest of America, but the world. We're going to send it over to Jace for a national update.
Thanks, and fears of flying have skyrocketed across the nation after two separate plane crashes last week. The first crash occurred last Wednesday when a Black Hawk military helicopter collided with a passenger plane over the Potomac River. At the time of filming, there are believed to be no survivors from the crash, and recovery efforts are still underway. President Donald Trump passed blame for the crash on Democratic policies, though some are pointing out that the current administration laid off hundreds of air traffic control agents prior to the crash. On Saturday, a medevac jet crashed into a Philadelphia neighborhood. All 6 passengers were Mexican nationals, including a child who was coming to the U.S. for medical treatment.
Folks like to find division in ranks, division in our politics. There's no division here. Everybody rowing in the same direction. Everybody working together.
On Monday, the Day Without Immigrants protest occurred in Southern California amid a surge in deportations. This comes after thousands of undocumented immigrants have been leaving their jobs in fears of being deported. So far, no arrests have been made in connection to the protest. And finally, fears are rising after the Treasury Department gave South African national Elon Musk access to the government's federal payment system, which holds trillions of dollars in federal loans and contracts. If the Department of Government Efficiency, which is yet to be approved by Congress, is to cancel any of these loans, the ripple effects could effectively leave the country and millions of Americans bankrupt.
Thanks, Jace. And the White House continues to stay busy with campaign promises as 3 things Donald Trump has highlighted in his campaign are coming to life. Tariffs right now are causing a lot of buzz around North America with the U.S., Canada, and Mexico in what seems to be a tariff war. President Donald Trump planned on going forward with his campaign promise of tariffing other countries as Canada and Mexico were hit with 25% tariffs and China a 10% tariff.
We will really have to do that because we have very big deficits with those countries. Those tariffs may or may not rise with time.
The tariffs slapped against these countries were met with actions. Mexico has responded with promising 10,000 troops to the U.S.-Mexico border. In return, America is holding off implementing the country's tariffs for at least a month. Canada originally hit America with a 25% tariff, but the 2 countries have backed off and will give it a month for further negotiations before implementing tariffs.
How did the call with Trudeau go? How did the call with Trudeau go?
Very good.
Are you still doing the tariffs? Are you still doing the tariffs tonight?
Right now, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Central America, where he toured the Panama Canal Sunday. Rubio recently warned that Panama must reduce Chinese influence around the Panama Canal, or the U.S. would step in. Rubio spent Monday in Ecuador touring an aeromin facility where aircraft maintenance and research is conducted.
25% of our capacity to fix airplanes in the Western Hemisphere, you're standing in the place that does it. And this is the kind of development that you need, not just to prevent migration, but to build a middle class in countries around the world, all driven by the private sector. It's one of the reasons why
The United States Agency of International Development was shut down Monday morning. Their agency's headquarters in D.C. were blocked off by police, and over 600 employees have reported that they have been locked out of their company's computer systems. Leader of the Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk, got the approval from the president to shut down the agency.
And USAID is a bowl of worms. There is no apple. And when there is no apple, you've just got to basically get rid of the whole thing.
As you can see, the executive branch of the country is staying busy, but in the United States, of course, there are 3 branches of government that all balance out. So we're going to send it back over to Kayla, who has what's going on in Congress.
Thanks. Now things are getting busy on Capitol Hill. Now let's head west to Idaho, where Republican lawmakers are calling on the Supreme Court to make a massive decision. The Idaho House passed a resolution asking the Supreme Court to reconsider their decision in the Obergefell versus Hodge case. Obergefell versus Hodge established the right to same-sex marriage in 2015 under the 14th Amendment. While the Supreme Court is unable to revisit a past opinion, they could take up a future case on the issue. Now, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum was confirmed by the Senate in a 79-18 vote. Burgum will begin his new role as the Secretary of Interior. In this position, he will oversee drilling and mining on federal land and water. Burgum will also chair a new National Energy Council, which will focus on increasing U.S. energy production. Now, speaking of President Trump's picks for his cabinet, a Democratic senator from Hawaii is working to hold votes for Trump's nominees. Senator Brian Schatz is threatening a blanket hold, which would essentially just mean slowing down the process to make it more difficult for Republicans to confirm the picks. Schatz is threatening this in protest over President Trump and Elon Musk's plans to shut down the U.S. Agency for International Development. This department sends aides overseas to help fight against disease, starvation, lack of education, and more. Now, things are only going to keep getting busier on Capitol Hill, but for now, let's go ahead and send it back to the studio.
Thanks, Kayla. And Kayla will be busy going into next week as a slew of Trump's nominees for cabinet positions will be up for grabs later this week. I'll get to that later. And before that, we're going to send it over to Poll Watch with Jordan, who has what the people are thinking right now in America.
Welcome back. Did you miss me? I bet you did. And hey, in a post-election world, people might think that there aren't polls to look at anymore, but let me tell you folks, you're wrong. You know what isn't wrong though? The numbers. And as that old ESPN show used to say, numbers never lie. Here we have a poll done by ActiVote, which took a poll on President Donald Trump's approval rating during the early stages of his presidency. Once you start looking into the subsets of those polled, however, things start to look a little different for Trump. Among urban voters, he sees a huge swing downwards, 55 to 42% unfavorable, and with voters in the 18-29 range, he polled the same. Among black voters, things look even bleaker for Trump, polling in at 63% unfavorable. And keeping it in D.C., we're going to switch over to how people feel about the job that Congress is doing. Unfortunately for Congress, though, things aren't looking too hot for them at the moment, facing a 45% disapproval rating compared to a 24% approval rating. And you know me, I've always got the numbers for you, but my dear old boy Jace, he's got the facts for you this week. So I'll send it over to Jace for a fact check.
Thanks, and going back to fears of an immigrant controlling the U.S. Treasury, I'd like to directly call out the intimidation and fear-mongering taking place on Twitter by Elon Musk. Following the revelation of Musk's acquisition of federal loan statements, several accounts reported the names of the several Musk allies who played a role in this movement. In response, Musk publicly accused users of committing a crime. However, this is not South Africa. Here in America, information on public figures can be readily accessed by the public. That's what makes the country so great. When an oligarch meddles in the government, the American people have a right to publicize the names of these people. If you don't like this, Mr. Musk, you can move to Russia with your alleged longtime correspondent, Vladimir Putin. It's clear what he does to whistleblowers. Now, I'd love to keep going, but due to the proclivities of this current administration, I'm unfortunately kept to just one lie a week. But don't worry, I'm here for the long run, and you cannot get rid of me no matter how annoying I get.
Thanks, Jace. And coming back here, we're going to be looking at the week ahead. A busy week for the Senate that will have real impacts on the Trump administration and beyond. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Kash Patel, and Tulsi Gabbard will receive their Senate vote later this week for their confirmation. The trio recently went through grueling hearings, especially Kennedy, who had to defend his previous stances of being anti-vaccination. Monday morning saw the stock market drop 655 points this morning amid the Trump administration's proposed tariffs. While Canada and Mexico have both agreed to waive their tariffs against the United States, the United States have also returned the gesture. Now, with an extra month, the countries will look to negotiate with each other to find a compromise to avoid what could turn out to be a nasty trade war. And the following days could also see further findings in the plane crashes that shook the country last week. Debris is still being pulled from the Potomac River and D.C., and the investigation continues on in Philadelphia. And of course, if anyone knows, there is so much news that just happens spontaneously. Like I said, folks, I just came in from covering a protest here in Iowa City, but that's what we're here for at the update. We'll be keeping an eye on everything for you and keep you in the loop. And with that, we'd like to thank you for tuning into the update tonight. We're going to find all your news and politics. Next week, we'll have more updates from the local level to the nationwide level. From the update, I'm Johnny Valtman. Have a wonderful night.